G'day geeks, my name is Chris and I have in my hands three figures. Two are DC Comics related and one is a modern reimagining, I guess, in the Funko Pop variety of a very obscure action figure line from the 80s, which I was excited to get, but I'm not sure many people will know of this property. Anyway, let's have a look at these three action figures and see what they are all about. Here we have two DC Multiverse figures from McFarlane Toys, who keep pumping out DC Comics related characters. So these Steel on the left, if you grew up reading comics in the 90s like me after the Death of Superman era, then you've got a soft spot in your heart for Steel. And on the right is the Dick Grayson version of Batman from the 2000s, 2010s perhaps. And in the middle we have a very obscure Lord Power from the Power Lords action figure line from Nacelle, which is a very obscure action figure line, but we'll talk about all these individually right now. This is the DC Comics character Steel, who first appeared in the Adventures of Superman number 500 in 1993, and he really took on one of the mantles of the Man of Steel after the death of Superman and the huge storyline that was. So Steel is an African American character known as John Henry Irons, and he's got his own suit. He's an engineer, he's very smart, he's got a massive hammer, cape, and Superman saved his life and he's very inspired to do similar heroic deeds. He's been in cartoons. He was portrayed by Shaquille O'Neal in a 1997 film called Steel, which is pretty bad. That was during the 90s when not all comic films were great, and he's currently appearing on the live-action Superman and Lois TV series. So yes, Steel from the Death of Superman and Reign of the Superman storyline from the comics that followed. The artwork doesn't always follow the what the figure looks like. This is a more of a modern version of the, or more updated version of his steel armor, rather than the armor he first appeared in. He's had a few different looks over the years, but this is a pretty close looking figure. We're going to open him up out of his plastic prison and have a look at John Henry Irons, aka Steel. Toy manufacturer Nacelle started creating DC Multiverse line, the DC Multiverse line of action figures back in 2016. They finished in 2019, and that's when McFarlane Toys took over, and they're in the 7-inch scale, so they're pretty chunky. If you've watched my Batman Forever video with all the Batman and Riddler, Two-Face and Robin figures, then you'll be familiar with the McFarlane Toys scale. But yes, Steel here is quite a large fella. I love the kind of detail on all the armor. Very poseable. He's got the rocket boots with some nice details underneath. The cape is pliable, kind of rubber. Bit of a scuff on there, but that's okay. His head can move up and down. He's got some nice texture on all the armor. This kind of looks like concrete, but it's just kind of the texture, I guess. He's got his belt with all these gadgets and stuff on. And yeah, you can see it's kind of pearlized to make it look like it's a bit textured. He's got little wrist gauntlets to fire little bolts or something. These little shoulder pauldrons move out of the way so they don't get stuck, and he's got the butterfly joint, so he's quite poseable even with his torso twist. So yes, Steel is a classic character, got all the rivets and stuff. So basically, if you imagine a more, bulky Iron Man armor, that's basically what Steel is. He comes with, that's going to fall over, that's okay. He comes with his trusty hammer, which is very well known for. That's pretty pliable as well, so it came a bit bent in the box, but that's not an issue. Nice chunky hammer. Comes with the base, which all DC figures do, so the peg holes on their feet. He can stand up easily enough, and he comes with a file card, also like all characters from the DC Multiverse McFarlane Toys do. Same artwork that's on the back of the box. Flip it over, and if you don't know who Steel is, it tells you all about him and his history in the comics. So I like this. This is actually a good addition, just to give you a bit of a brief rundown of who these characters are. Steel is a pretty good looking figure, I must say. He's been out for a while, but there was another couple of things that I wanted to get from Pop Culture, Australia's biggest online toy store, so I thought I'd throw him in with the mix as well. As I said, very poseable, very detailed, McFarlane Toys like to kind of change the costumes, some of the comics characters that they put in action figure form. Sometimes it's subtle changes, sometimes it's complete redesigns, but here, as I said, he's pretty faithful to one of his newer costumes that Steel has had for a while, and he's going to look good on my 90s shelf next to Black Suit Superman and Cyborg Superman. I just need a Superboy and a Eradicator, which if you read the Reign of the Superman, the Death of the Superman and Return of the Superman storyline from the 90s, you'll also be familiar with those characters. But Steel here is a pretty good addition to my DC Comics shelf. And yeah, the 90s was when I really fell in love with comics, and the habit kind of grabbed my heart and my wallet and my attention. So Steel certainly represents the era of DC Comics in particular that I fell in love with, the art form known as sequential art. This is the Steel from the Man of Steel action figure line produced by Kenner. This was released in 1995, so only a couple of years after the character's debut. I've got a few of these on card, and they released quite a few different ones, including a chrome version of this very figure of Steel. But yes, I love this kind of Kenner 1990s action figure line. I had him loose as a kid, but I thought I'd grab him carded as well because he kind of displays well. So this is the Kenner version of Steel. Okay, this looks pretty awesome. So on the left, obviously, we have the new Steel figure. In the middle, we have the black suit, or sometimes known as recovery suit, Superman when he returns from the dead with his lovely beard and luscious mullet. And this is from the Mezco Toys, and he comes with a whole bunch of accessories. So this is my first and only Mezco Toys, and he comes with guns and all that kind of stuff. So awesome. I love the black suit of Superman. And on the right we have the DC Essentials Cyborg Superman. So when Superman died in the early 90s in the comics, there was Superboy, who was a clone. There was Steel on the left. There was the Cyborg Superman, and there was the Eradicator. So there were 4 different Supermen running around until the real Steel deal, this one, showed himself. So yes, these are the 3 1990s death of, reign of, return of Superman figures that I have on my shelf. I love them all. They're awesome. So yes, Steel is a bit taller, but that actually scales quite nicely because he is a bit taller when he's all in his armor suit anyway. So here we go. Here is Steel. Batman Reborn was a series that ran in DC Comics in 2009, and it basically followed the events in the Batman family of characters when the original Batman, Bruce Wayne, apparently died at the hands of Darkseid, but really he travelled back in time, and it was very awesome. So Dick Grayson, who was the original Robin, replaced Bruce Wayne as Batman, and he'd done that before when Bane broke his back in the 90s. So this is the Dick Grayson version of Batman, and it's a pretty similar costume to what Bruce Wayne was wearing, but you'll notice that this is the Platinum edition. So something that McFarlane Toys likes to do is have kind of chase or rare variants of their figures. They don't do it with all of them, but they certainly do it a lot more frequently now. They're a bit frustrating sometimes for collectors. So this is the first Platinum edition that I've got, and this differs from the regular edition because he's in his blue and grey costume, whereas the normal edition is kind of the black and grey. So he didn't really wear these colours in the costume in the comics, I think, but yeah, he still looks pretty awesome and more faithful to the original Batman colours, I guess, in the comics at the time. So yes, this is from the Batman Reborn storyline, which then launched into the Batman and Robin. And this is the cover of the first issue. So this is Dick Grayson as Batman. You can see the comic colours there. And this is Damian Wayne, so Bruce Wayne's child, as Robin. And it was a bit of a flip on the traditional Batman and Robin partnership. So here Robin is the more serious one, and Batman, Dick Grayson, is the more carefree one. So it was an interesting flip on the traditional Batman and Robin dynamics. And yeah, really awesome series by Grant Morrison primarily, and a ton of artists. Let's open up this blue and grey platinum edition of Dick Grayson as Batman. Dick Grayson as Batman looking pretty good out of the package, just like Steel and all the other DC Multiverse figures from McFarlane. He comes with the traditional stand with the peg hole for his foot to stand in, and he comes with the file card which tells you all about the history of the character, so you can pause that if you want to know a bit more about how Dick Grayson became a temporary Batman. And he also comes with a bunch of hands, so he's got some kind of splayed out hands and some fist hands. And straight out of the package he has these kind of nifty, I think they're like electric kind of pulsy knuckle dusters. The costume, as I said, is pretty similar. I like the creases and stuff on the costume. He's a slimmer build than most Batman action figures. Dick Grayson is a former acrobat before he became Robin, so he's a bit slimmer than Bruce Wayne is. But yeah, very similar costume to Bruce Wayne. The belt is different. Everything else is pretty similar really, and the gauntlets are a bit shorter as well. This figure has a wired cape, which is awesome. I love it when figures come with wired capes rather than Steel, who just came with a pre-posed kind of rubber one. But this is a bit shiny as well. So yeah, just having a big, huge, look at that, wired cape. So there's two wires running down both sides, just allows you to do a lot more with it and get him in some dynamic poses. Just for good measure, here he is standing next to the Steel. This is the Superpowers line, the gold version of Batman, which I also looked at in a recent video, also from McFarlane Toys, based on the classic Kenner Superpowers line from the 80s. And here we have Bruce Wayne as Batman in his one of his classic costumes, inspired by a wonderful artist extraordinaire, Alex Ross. I think this was from DC Direct a few years ago, I think. So yeah, he fits in pretty well with other action figures for sure. So yes, I'm very glad I got this one. Happy that I got the Platinum Edition as well, so in the blue and grey. And I always love seeing wired capes on my action figures. Nacelle is an American documentary making company and relatively new toy making company. So they have brought up the rights to a few beloved properties such as Sectors from the 80s, Biker Mice from Mars from the 90s, and these figures, Power Lords, which were first released by Revell in 1983. They didn't last very long, and they're very obscure. They weren't based on an existing comic or TV show or cartoon or films or books or anything like that. It was completely new IP, intellectual property, and Power Lords were really weird and freaky alien kind of characters. DC Comics eventually did release a 3-issue comic miniseries based on the property, but yes, Power Lords was such unique designs. They really stood out in the 80s, you know, amongst G.I. Joe and He-Man and Transformers and stuff. They're very weird. So I had Lord Power, this figure, in the 80s, the one from Revell, and this has just been released. I was very excited when I saw that Nacelle was releasing a Power Lords, the Extraterrestrial Warriors Funko Pop. I don't have a lot of Funko Pops, but I was very excited when I saw that they were releasing this. So this is the main good guy, Lord Power, and all this kind of blue is what the original 80s packaging had. And you can see on the back there that he's kind of two characters in one, which retains the gimmick from the original. You can see there he's got a more human looking side and an alien looking side. Let's have a closer look at Lord Power of the Power Lords. This is so cool. I'm so glad that some of these obscure 80s and 90s pop culture products are coming back. So yeah, I used to own a lot of Funko Pops. I mean, they're just ubiquitous. Everybody has at least one, I think, in their collection. I've probably had like 20 or 30 in my time and probably sold half of those. I don't have a heap left. But yes, here is Lord Power, and he comes with his gun, and he comes with very similar 80s kind of styling. So this is pretty much what he looks like. And the original figure had a button which you would press on his belt, and he would kind of, or just above you can see there's a little blue button there as a homage to that. You would press that and his waist would flip and he would reveal his human side. So rather than produce two different figures, they've kind of kept that here. So his head just turns, as most of the Funko Pop characters do. They don't have any articulation really. Small body, big head. But yes, I just love the creepiness and the veins and stuff in his blue body. It's a very cool looking sci-fi gun. I don't know if they're going to release any more Funko Pops from the Power Lords line. They haven't announced that they will. But yes, I'm very, very happy. I never thought I'd see any more Power Lords merchandise around. So hopefully Nacelle release some actual, 6 or 7 inch action figures. They did release Sector's action figures once they got the license. And the Four Horsemen Studios did release some Power Lords figures. I think just one wave in 2013, 2014. But hopefully we get more traditional action figures of this unique Power Lords line. On the right is the Ravel figure, the Power Lords figure from 1983, filled with weird vehicles and creatures. This is the probably most regular, normal, humanoid looking creature. It was a line of such fantastic and odd designs. So yes, this isn't my actual one from a kid, but I did have Lord Power, and you can see how close he is to the Funko Pop version here. Very similar kind of costume design, and you flip him over and the back is pretty similar as well. You can see the button right in his where his belly button would be. This doesn't work, but in the original version, the 983, if this worked, you would press this button and his waist would flip. But yeah, that doesn't really work anymore. And yeah, his arms can bend both ways, double jointed elbows. So yes, you can see how kind of weird and veiny he looks. He's got that weird face with the jewel on his forehead and a slightly concerned look in the human version. But yes, I don't have his weapons or anything, but you can see that they're very, very similar in style and costume design. So yes, here we go. Lord Power of the Power Lords. A small but pretty cool haul. So Dick Grayson as Batman, John Henry Iron Steel, and Lord Power from Power Lords. Very happy with these 3 unique characters. They all look good on my shelves. Thanks for watching. If you remember Power Lords, why don't you comment below? I'd be curious to know how many people like me remember this very obscure toy line from the 80s. Thanks for watching all the way through to the end. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff. And goodbye, geeks.